Welcome, listeners, to a realm where shadows dance and whispers echo. I'm your host, Rick Clifton, and this is Quills and Chills, the podcast that brings you face to face with the masterminds behind the macabre. In each episode, we journey into the minds of horror writers and filmmakers to uncover the secrets lurking within their tales of terror. From classic tales to modern nightmares, we'll traverse the corridors of the human psyche and unravel the threads of dread that keep us turning the pages or sitting out there in the dark. Welcome to Quills and Chills. Hello and welcome back to Quills and Chills. I'm your host, Rick Clifton, and today joining me is K R Blair. Katie is an incredible screenwriter and novelist known for her dark, female-driven stories. You may know her novels, The Beckoning Shadow and Unchosen, or you may know her work as a writer and executive story editor on Marvel's Loki on Disney+. And I'm thrilled she is taking the time to talk to me today about her latest book, The Hushed. So welcome to the show, Katie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I apologize if you can hear my dog eating the rest of my lunch in the bowl below me. Can you hear that? The little ting, ting, ting.
We can hear him a little bit, but that is quite all right.
Okay, you let me know.
You let Max have at it. He can do whatever he likes.
Yes. Okay. Hello.
We're a dog-friendly show around here.
Okay, he stopped now. We should be good.
Perfect. So before we dive into The Hushed, I'd love to get to know you a little bit. So give us a sort of a little bit of an overview about Katie. What's going on with Katie?
What's going on with me? Okay, well, I grew up in the church. And so I grew up in actually a really fundamentalist kind of corner of already really fundamentalist sect of Christianity. So that is where a lot of my inspiration came from, because I was a very anxious kid, didn't finish school. I actually had to kind of pull out of 8th grade and do independent studies. So it was a really rough kind of childhood with two incredibly supportive parents and sisters. It was just, my brain was being kind of wonky, which is always really fun. And then I found refuge in stories. I remember my sister she's going to the hospital. She's epileptic. And so she was going to the hospital for an MRI one night, and Interview with a Vampire came on TNT. I don't know if any of us old OGs remember TNT. But my parents weren't home, and I was like, well, what I could do is do the opposite of what I should do, and that is watch this movie. So I watched that movie, and it just kind of took me on a journey, and I remember feeling like, this is my shit. Sorry, am I allowed to say shit?
You are very loud.
Okay.
I almost left a few out earlier, and I was like, maybe I should check. So
no, again, you good.
We're
okay,
in
perfect.
Great company with each other here.
Okay, and Max just chilled out. Jeez, bro. Zero decorum. Yeah, so I was just... So this is my shit. I'm so excited. And my mom and dad, instead of trying to try and course correct and tell me I couldn't go that way, they were just really supportive in me finding whatever kind of stories made me feel safe and like I was heard. So I remember my mom that year got me Interview with the Vampire for Christmas. And wow. I opened it I was maybe 14 at that point. I opened it in front of my whole family. They're like, what is that? Anyway. So that just kind of started that obsession with the dark stories and the people who were trying to be better, but they were pulled back by some dark thing, whether or not it's their nature, if it was vampires, or just their desires and it was a really important thing for me at a young age. And so I grew up and wanted to be, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to have a real job. And so writer never pinged in my mind as something that would actually pay the bills. You know what I mean? It was in that, I went to college at Pepperdine, and it was cool, I can write on the side. I'll write for fun. I didn't pay attention to that little voice. I didn't pay attention to that very obvious sign that that's what I wanted to do. So I'd write for fun, or in the margins of my notes in class, or when I could. And it's but I need a real job. So I majored in 15 different things, and none of them stuck, obviously, until I became an English major. I gave in. I became an English major my junior year. One of my teachers was like, I think you might be one of us. And I was like, I am. So got married, started writing my first novel on our honeymoon, because my husband got me On Writing by Stephen King. We were taking a train ride, and he was like, I think you like this book. And it was just transformative. I was like, I'm going to do this shit. This is what I want to do. Duh. So wrote, A lot of failing, a lot of failing. Yeah. And eventually something kind of clicked. I've had 4 kids in that journey. So that was, I glossed over the part that people want to hear most. I'm like, so when I was little, and they're like, no, how did you actually do the thing that is the thing? I got my master's in screenwriting and my master's in literature at the same time at 2 different schools. It's a long story, but I was pregnant, kind of shuffling back from Malibu to Claremont and writing a book, hoping it would hit. So eventually I did wind up, after like 3 agents and 4 failed books, getting a deal with HarperCollins. That started opening the door for everything else in terms of like having access to that world. So I feel like that first door opening is really hard. And then you can finally ask people like, so who do I talk to about this? And that starts a process where you can actually make inroads in a way. And it feels like a very hard industry to get into. But then I did have a manager that we didn't really click, but I was just excited to like be on the TV side. I was like, hell yeah, you know, I'm going to be a TV writer. And then we didn't really work out, but on the way out, I remember him kind of saying like, you're more of a natural novelist than a TV writer. And I run really, really well on spite. I run really, really well on someone telling me I can't do something that's like, it's my shit. I'm like, yeah, okay, please don't be nice to me if you're going to hurt my feelings. If you're going to say no to me, like, please just do it in a way that's going to make me really motivated. So I really dug in, got into the finals at NBC's Writers on the Verge, which is a writing fellowship program for TV writers. And I found out the night before my sister's wedding at her rehearsal dinner that I didn't make it, which was delicious. And yeah, but it did get me representation, which eventually kind of got me in the room to get staffed on Loki. Then I went to London and wrote on Loki. And that's been kind of, was that like a too long of an overview for you? Or
No, my God, it was perfect.
Oh gosh, I feel like I've given this spiel so many times that I want to make sure that I'm not just like, my eyes aren't glazing over, my body's just talking, you know?
No, it's fantastic. I absolutely love it. So, well, with that said, what's your process for writing? I mean, are you an obsessive plotter? Do you just dive in and like let it take you where it takes you? And is it different writing for TV versus writing for novels? Like, talk a little bit about your process.
Oh yes, of course. It depends on the book, honestly. Like for this one, I world built a lot because it was such a big story.
Yeah, you did. I have a lot to say about that.
Thank you. No, but it was fun because I actually started writing this in 2015. So this book was actually bought and returned twice to me, which it was crazy. It was the reason I have other books published is because this book was acquired or it got interest and then they're like, this is just too weird. Can you do something else? So this book has been like the one that's kind of always come home and I've always tried to make it work. So I spent a lot of time plotting this one, world building, making maps, making, index cards, and actually would go out and get coffee with my husband. It's so weird now because but when I started writing this, I had 1 kid. Now I have 4. And we'd go get like coffee or something. And then he'd quiz me on the world building. And
I love it.
So I could actually remember things. And then he'd be like, you're not ready. If I wasn't quick enough on the draw. So I do a lot of plotting for things like that. If it's going to be a big world building, I've noticed that if I don't, and I just go like, I'll figure that out. That's a key component in me winding up with a story that at the turn of the 3rd act, I've made a complete mess of it. I've done that too many times. So I find it's a big waste of time for me to not world build like that. But I also, for TV, I tend to kind of make the bones of the world building in my mind. And then I don't outline too much because I find that I overthink it. So I just start to, but TV is so much easier in terms of the time you have to commit, because if I'm writing a pilot, that's 64 pages of final draft, which is a lot different than 100,000 words of a novel, Mm-hmm. So I tend to adjust how much I'm jumping in for an outline on books or TV, but I do have a process where I will go get a certain coffee, depending on the season, pumpkin spice cold brew if it's now, or maybe like an eggnog latte if it's the Christmas season. But if I spend like $5 on a coffee, then I'm like, I'm not going to not write today because that'd be a waste of $5, which is kind of a dumb thing.
Of it. I love it. So
yes, and so I used to be able to kind of just lock myself in a closet, and by closet I mean wherever I was writing, and just write for hours. And my husband would would bring me food and kind of slide it in the room like I was some sort of gremlin that was just like, but I can't do that with kids now. So it's funny you say that, because I was just feeling like my process has definitely changed. Now I'm getting up at 5 and just turning on a movie in the background and writing. It's very different to try and get writing time done nowadays. So
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this book. We have to talk about this book. And I have to say, just because you brought up the world building, I think this book offers one of the most original and unique premises that I have encountered in such a long time, and all the books that I've read, all the movies that I've consumed. And it really is just special and unique.
Thank you.
You know what I love most about this, Katie? And it stuck with me the entire time I was reading the book, but it really jumped out to me in the first chapter. And it's what you did in that first chapter. You did just such a fantastic job of delivering me into this world, right? And
thank you.
You laid out all of the ground rules. And, of course, they obviously changed through the story, but you did all of that in the first chapter. And I was just like, wow. I felt grounded. I knew where I was. I wasn't trying to figure out what the hell is going on here. And it was so great. So
thank you. That was that first chapter has never changed. So many other things have changed about it. That first line, that first chapter, that was all from the jump the same, which is very weird. I've had to change things around it because the stakes I put in the ground for chapter 1 obviously made it so I had to make it work. But I'm glad to hear that, because that was my goal. That was my hope.
It really kind of jumped out to me. It was really fantastic. So I loved it. Let's start by just giving us a sort of an overview of what the story or the book itself is about.
Yes. It's so funny you say that. And like, even my little procrastinator bullshitter meters like, oh shit, did I read the book? And I have to remind myself that I wrote it. So I'm totally fine. There's just a little part of me that's like PTSD from book clubs where I'm like, oh, I totally read that. I know what I'm talking about. It's about a world where when you die, your secrets come back as people. So they look like regular people, they sound like regular people, but they're actually personified secrets that wake up the second you die. So it's like the catchphrase that my publisher and I talked about was like, the skeletons in your closet come to life the second you take your last breath, that kind of thing. Or they take their first breath and you take your last. So it's about a handful of these hushed, or the secrets, that live in North Carolina, which is kind of, now I'm like, oh my gosh, North Carolina. Okay. They're going through so much right now. But yeah, so it was a weird week to be like, I hope you guys are okay. I don't think Reardon Falls would be okay right now. That is the interesting part. But it's about these secrets who are personified, and they live in this town. And the tricky thing about being a hush is once you tell your secret to the person who needs to hear it most, which is what they are programmed to do. And by programmed, I mean that's what they're compelled to do. They drop dead. So they get kind of this pull towards this one person or this one place. They follow it if they follow it, I guess. And eventually it's supposed to be that this pull does get you. It's this compulsion, this need that they will give into eventually if they're around long enough, and they drop dead. So it's about a girl named Erie who is a hushed, and a boy named Logan. And I say boy, but I mean, boy is for me anybody who's like 18 to, boy's a term for any male identifying person at this point. Right. Yeah. In my head, it's like, boy, he's like, bitch, he's 35 or whatever. He's not 35. I don't know. He's a grown up, but he comes back to town trying to solve the mystery of his mother's death, which was in a prison fire. So his mother was an inmate in the prison, and Erie knows some stuff, and they're not allowed to be around each other because he could be the key to her death. So that's the whole tension of the novel, is this feeling of, I don't think I should be around this person because I don't know what the risk is. I don't know what the risk level is, but he's cute. So I'm going to risk it, which is such a relatable thing.
And exactly. And when they first meet, obviously it's the sparks fly, but in many different ways and forms, I think, for sure. So
thank you. I was trying to make sparks fly.
So as you mentioned, Erie she's a hushed, and she's living secret in human form. Can you talk a little bit about her and who she is and her journey, and again, spoiler free, because oh my God, those last 3-4 chapters, I was like, I literally audibly like, what the fuck? I mean, it just was like every chapter, and so obviously I don't want to give this.
Thank you. I won't spoil it. I've been living with that for 9 years. Where if I give somebody to read it, I'm like, I hope they like it. And I hope that's a reaction. What the fuck is a perfect? Hope, that's what you hope
mission
for.
accomplished. Because
as a writer,
literally all I could do. I was like, okay. So
thank you.
Great.
Eerie it's funny because I actually started writing the book from Fabian's perspective, her brother. And then it's almost like she's kind of like, excuse me, bitch. She took my attention. So I had to shift to her perspective, which was kind of interesting. She's just this person that is wondering what it's like to be a person. She's kind of new to being a person. She's only a few years old, but she's like a fully formed, early 20-something person. So it's an interesting dichotomy of trying to make your way in the world and feel like you don't belong or that you came here because somebody else usually suffered something pretty bad. It's not the secrets that create Hushed usually aren't the type that are like, I was in love with this person, I just never said. I mean, there are some that are that case, but humanity is messy. And so the messes they leave behind are pretty messy. And these Hushed are like the personifications of those messes that they didn't get to fix. So she's just living with that. And the hook of the whole first part of the book, spoiler free, is that she doesn't remember what her secret is, and neither does her brother. So they woke up in the Iron Bar prison fire the night it happened, and the trauma of just trying to like survive made it so that they kind of don't remember who they belong to. So the threat is not just one person, it's potentially anybody, which is why Logan coming to town is also such a dangerous thing. But Eerie she's really protective of the people she loves, but she's perpetually terrified. So it's kind of a fun little balance there. And I do think I wrote her out of a person who has severe anxiety and has had like OCD and depression and things like that. Just writing somebody who is trying to run from that, but you can't really. And knowing that your purpose is somewhere that's in the brambles between something really scary and wanting to go check it and wanting to go see it, wanting to go like fulfill your purpose or do the hard thing, but not sure if you're strong enough to figure out how to survive that hard thing. That's kind of where I pulled a lot of her motivation. So I like her. I think she's funny and she's kind of a mess, which I enjoy. And anybody who's like willing to cause a scene or be a bitch for people they love is worth my time personally. So I like her.
I like her too. I liked her because I felt like even though it was clear there were moments where she was afraid, she didn't let that fear hold her back, right? And she pushed forward, whether that was a false bravado or whether that was done out of another emotion altogether. Again, I'm trying to be a little spoiler free and vague, but those were things that I picked up on and liked about this.
Thank you.
So
I love heroines like that. I don't want the ones that are like, and I was so hot and I was so brave. I feel like sometimes fantasy novels, and she was so hot and she was so brave and everything she said was so funny. And I'm just like, where's the person that's like, I'm going to pee myself and that's not going to be something I can do at 22, but that's going to happen. And I'm so embarrassed. So just like, I just wanted a messy, fun, not very cool heroine.
And it worked great. Let's talk a little bit about Fabian and his connection to Eerie. We know that it's Eerie's brother, and the fire and his story and his role. Again, big surprise at the end. I didn't see coming, and I'm kind of like mad at myself that I didn't see it coming because I'm like, well, of course. But it was also one of those like, oh, okay, well, damn. So all right, Katie.
Well, damn, that's another good one.
I see you, Katie.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's again a highlight of my life. I should just tell them, take back all the books, fix the blurb on the back. It should just be, well, damn.
Well, damn, Katie.
Well, damn. I see you. Perfect. That's a great endorsement. Fabian is kind of a mixture of my actual brother and just someone who can make you feel safe. And I feel like I've had a lot of like really good men in my life that make me feel that way, where it's like someone who's going to protect you and show up and be one of the good ones. And I did want to have a conversation about faith and whether or not that's something that everyone can have, or it's something that people who are just kind of wired that way have. So, and faith is always going to be something that I wrestle with and want to bring up in my stories. I feel like even if I try and write a story without some sort of faith journey, it doesn't work. I wind up getting some sneaky character that has one, and I'm like, shit, I didn't mean to do that. So he was the one that's kind of the believer in the story, and he believes that they are there for a purpose, which is kind of an interesting. I'm saying interesting, like I didn't write it, like a really smart move on the writer's part. What a dick. No, I wanted to have
for you then. I have no problem saying that. What a really smart move.
Thank you. Good. I'm glad someone said it. I just wanted to put in some different perspectives because I know a lot of people are going to be like, if this were real, it'd be like, well, okay, where did they come from? Who made them? Were they made? Is this an accident? Like, it's so having Fabian say, I think we were created. I think there's a purpose to us. I think we have individuality. I think we have worth and purpose just as we are. And he's unafraid of trying to find out his secret because he believes there's a reason he should. So Erie's just kind of like, we are some giant fucking cosmic accident at best. And if you find out, you are not going to be able to resist that pull and you're going to die. So can you stop? So he's a big motivator for her in being somebody who he's basically like the big lovable himbo. He's not a himbo, he's smart, but just the big lovable person that's like, oh, I can do this. And I don't want to compare him to like my son who thinks he like, I absolutely can climb that, mom. And you're like, please don't. I know you probably can, but I'd prefer if you didn't because you're gonna fall. So I think she's just very protective of him and his like hopeful soul. And she's just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it's interesting because they were created on the same night. So they find each other in the fire. He's automatically someone who's like, all right, we got to get you out of here, even though he's suffered the same trauma she has. He's just a protector by nature. So that's him. And I was compelled by the Bible verse that says, like, basically everything will be revealed. God's going to show everything that's done in the dark will be brought to the light. You're not going to be able to hide things, essentially. There's a line in The Walking Dead in season 2 where there's a preacher named Herschel, and I don't know if everybody's like seen Walking Dead, but
I love Herschel.
And I mean, oh man, that show got me through my second pregnancy, which should tell me a lot about myself. But Herschel says, when God said the dead would walk again, I didn't think this is what he had in mind. And I always thought that was so like trying to take a biblical perspective and put it on something that's happened where you're like, I don't think that's right, but maybe. So just what's done in the dark will be brought to the light and is such an interesting concept. And he's like, he never said how, so maybe that's us. And yeah, I like him. I always kind of pictured him as Tom Hardy, but I feel like I picture everybody as Tom Hardy. Sorry, Tom.
See, and I was kind of going there with Logan a little bit, so I could
hey,
totally.
You know what? In my mood board, it's just Tom Hardy with a bunch of different outfits. Perpetual Tom Hardy in my brain. If I ever in the same room with him, I'll be so panicky that he's gonna read that in my brain and be like, "You're such a fucking weirdo." That I actually, my funniest thing in the world. Sidebar: my first book, Beckoning Shadow, I had him in my brain as the lead, and I called. The character's name is Sam, and so I just put the last name in there as Sam Hardy because I was like, whatever, placeholder. Fucking forgot to change it. So it literally is that. And I didn't realize until I was holding the finished copy of the book. And I was like, well, shit, I guess that's his name. So awkward, but icebreaker? I don't know.
I think it's a total icebreaker. It's the way into that conversation. Do it.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Logan a little bit then. He is not a hushed. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say his reaction to Erie when he finds out that she is surprises her a little bit. And I don't think that's a spoiler, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about their relationship. Yeah,
well, he's kind of an outcast and has been from a very young age. So his mother was convicted of murdering his father when he was a teenager. She was arrested when he was 9. So he's lived his whole life kind of as the kid who had the dead dad and the killer mom. So he's never really been the guy who fits in super well with regular people. So he's not completely, he's not worried at all when he finds out that she's a hushed. It's more like, okay, so because you're a weirdo, I'm a weirdo. That kind of clicks. It makes sense. And she does not tell him, obviously, the truth of who she is, which is a big source of tension in the book. So he knows that she's a hush, but he doesn't know where she was born, where she stirred. That's the word I'm looking for. The word that I invented to explain exactly what that phenomena is. Stirring.
loved.
Stir.
The stirred, when they were stirred, the pull, all of these
Wounded.
words that I just
Blech.
loved it. It was
Thank you.
There's this whole lexicon around all of this that I can't even find the words for it. It's just it's such a rich history. So, and I love knowing now that it's taking you so long to bring this book forward and to life, because I can see it. I can see how all of that has sort of grown.
Thank you.
All the time. So.
Well, I'm glad. I looked at the lexicon myself and was like, I'm really sorry to my copy editor who has to keep all of this straight. My deepest apologies. Felt kind of bad about that. But yeah.
It's so funny. I love the lexicon that you did with this. I won't say the name of the book. I'll tell you when we're not recording, but there is a very famous book that tried the same thing, and it was so annoying to me. And I won't say the name here, but I will tell you afterwards.
Okay, good. No, my husband's a very deep sci-fi guy. Very, like, he listens to, okay, it's like I'm listening to different podcasts, like I'm listening to Morbid or something very, very dark, and he's listening to Lord of the Rings, like the unabridged version. So he's very much like so-and-so of the second age of the gilded blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, if I open a book and it does that to me, I tend to kind of go, all right, fuck off with that. Like, sorry, I have a J.R.R. Tolkien tattoo, so I love the man, but I'm just like, can you give me some definitions and some grounded world building, please? I'm so tired. I don't have time to read your encyclopedia. Yes. So I'm glad that worked. But that's kind of them. They both have the same goal, and they both wind up on the same adventure. It's kind of like, all right, this is a cool human. And she's like, this is a cool guy, and maybe I'll die if I get too close to him, because she's not sure if and when the knowledge of who she is, or where she, like, what she's supposed to do, who she's supposed to tell, will kick in. So it feels like kind of an anvil that's suspended above her that he doesn't know about. And he doesn't know that his proximity could, in theory, kill her. So that's kind of a fun little boy meets girl holds secret of boy's mom's murder. That classic trope.
And all of their impending death waiting just around the corner, right?
We love an impending death.
Exactly. And then real quickly, we have to touch on Rory, because Rory didn't see that.
I love her.
I've said that 5 times now, right? But still.
No, I love it. It's so good for my ego. You don't even understand. No, I love her. And she's actually based on one of my really good friends growing up, in like all the good things she will do and all the kindness. So Amanda, this is it's like a nice thing, I promise. But it's like, it's a interesting to have somebody that's kind of your ride or die. And I wanted to paint a friend who was a ride or die. Got a lot of history. Yep. She's got her own secrets. She's kind of a very not controlled. She's the girl you want to be, the one who has like the perfect little tendrils in her ponytail hanging around her face in the perfect way. She doesn't really ever seem sweaty. She doesn't seem ruffled. She, of course, knows how to control her drifts, which is the dreams they have where they kind of memorize or memory. Wow. Hold on. Let me get my words back in line. It's where they kind of remember things or share their memories with other Hush while they're sleeping. So she's just kind of got her shit together, and she's Rory's best friend. So I like her.
I like her too. I thought she was great all the way to the end. So good stuff. Well, let's talk a little bit about sort of this Ironbark prison fire, because I feel like that is kind of the central point to the whole story, right? Yeah. And obviously it's very significant to their journey. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how that is sort of the driving force, especially for Erie and Logan.
Yeah. So there's this big fire. Sorry, I was going to sneeze. No, I'm not going to sneeze. I'm good. There was a big fire at this prison. It's a fictional prison, but it's set outside of nowhere, North Carolina. And I called it Ironbark Women's Prison. And it, for me, is a place where you can kind of pour into the question of like power and who has it and how we're treating people who are now powerless. So that sounds really high level. It's a prison, and there was a fire. You don't quite know how it started. There is one survivor and he's on trial. His trial is starting in the book because, you know, you have to blame somebody. If we've seen any natural disaster / accident / corporate failure, you know, you need like one person that they're all going to yell at. And you know, it's probably way bigger than that person. And the people who were actually at fault are probably not sitting in the defendant's chair. But it's a mystery that was never quite solved and absolutely never rectified. So there's a lot more going on there than just a lot of people died. So Logan comes back and he's like, he never believed his mom was guilty to begin with. So that is just, that's like level 1. And level 2 is like, she wasn't guilty to begin with. And there was a lot more happening in that prison than she ever let on. And I think he carries a lot of guilt that he wasn't able to exonerate her and get her out of that situation. And Eerie, for a long time, is happy to just never know anything about it. It's like, that place sucked. I hope this guy goes to jail, but like, this is my problem. And I think getting closer to Logan and putting a face, which I feel like happens every time there's something nameless and it's just like a picture in a paper or a Wikipedia page, and you meet somebody who's actually dealt with it, it changes the whole thing for you, right? So she meets him and she gets to know his mother through him and his memories of her and who she was as a person, and all those facts and figures and stats become humanized to her, which compels her to then seek answers, even though she knows it might kick up a buried thing inside her that could kill her. So it's the catalyst for kind of a beautiful choice that everyone has to make of like, is it going to be just about me, or is it going to be about justice and what's right? And I hope that resonates. I hope that works. But I was just like trying to find a way to, and there's also obviously like a lot of twists and a lot of fucked up stuff that's happening because I don't trust anyone, and neither should you. So just trying to, play with the idea of who's in control of the narrative and what do you do when you're not, which I don't think any of us are. I'm not powerful enough to control a narrative. I hope that changes one day, but until then, I'll just be a lowly peon who's trying to fight for truth and goodness.
Same over here. I don't know that we'll ever have it, but who knows? We can
one day the narrative shall be mine.
So without giving too much away, we have to talk about this ending because, I mean, so I want to talk about the approach to that ending. I love knowing that it's taken you this long to put this story together and all of that. Did you always know how this was going to end, or how has that changed over time? How did it evolve? I love it because, like I said, there was especially it was pretty much the whole back end, but especially those last few chapters, it was just like, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck. I mean, yes. And it's just, it really, really, what a way to wrap up a story. Loved it.
Thank you.
And again, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but I don't feel like you left it open for possibility. I'll leave it at that.
It is. I don't want to like overpromise and underdeliver, but I'm gonna overpromise and then I'm gonna deliver good shit. But it's definitely just the start of the story for me. So yeah. I already have. Oh yeah, no, I already have the sequel title. I already know all the. I've been working on the sequel, so it's good. I can't just leave it like that. What kind of monster am I? No, these characters I'm not even close to being done with them yet, which is so fun. And this was the first story I was ever writing, where I remember like writing it. I hit that flow state, which is so delicious, you know. And I remember thinking, if no one ever buys this, I was writing the prison scene when I stopped and thought, if no one ever buys this, if no one ever reads this except like the people that love me, that's okay, because I love these characters so much and I love the story so much that writing it has been a joy. So that was like the first time I've ever really stopped and went, you know, I don't need anybody else to validate this for me. I really enjoy doing this just for myself, which I think is where the magic sauce comes in when you're writing something. I've written things to market. They've never seen the light of day. So I that's a very important lesson to learn, but I'm not done with them yet. Even if it was like nobody else wanted it, I will slap that shit up on Kindle Unlimited so fast. It's going to be so good. Like, I can't leave these characters alone is what I'm saying.
Well, you got me. I'm already in, so.
Thank you. Haha. Okay, you're going on the list. Yeah, the ending, I always knew where it was going to go. Getting there was a kick in the ass quite a bit. I felt like I could see some of the ending. I saw some of the ending scenes in my brain as opposed to seeing them somewhere else, which is, what I'm talking about. Yeah, I saw that. I knew I wanted to get there. Trying to thread all of those needles and make sure that I didn't undo something else while making something make sense was tough. So it was a lot of world building, heavy lifting at the front end. That's why I did so much work on that. I needed to make sure to understand exactly who's going where. I had maps, I had timelines. So just trying to play with the interplay between scientific discovery and magic, and how are those things different, how are those things the same. That was a fun little aha moment for me. And it's funny because either people are like, that was cool, or they're like, I don't get it. And I feel like there's no in between. So
I thought it was cool, and I got it.
Cool. So, you're one of the cool kids.
Yay, yes. I feel like I should ask this question. There's another question I really want to ask. I'm going to ask both, but we'll start with this. What do you hope that readers are going to take away from this story? Whether it's about secrets, whether it's about family or love, or even the complex nature of identity. What is the sort of the big takeaway for you?
I think I would like people to walk away feeling like you are worth. That sounds so trite and so simple, but it's just like you are your own person, and it doesn't matter what your circumstances are or where you came from or what somebody else is trying to tell you are. You're allowed to decide that for yourself. And
I don't think that sounds trite. I think that's a very strong message, actually, because I feel that from getting to the end of the story, I feel like that comes through loud and clear.
Thank you. And then on a really dumb romantic, and by dumb I mean the thing I live for, like romanticy level, I'd hope that people are like, kiss. So that's also very important to me.
A lot of shipping going on there for sure.
A lot of shipping. I love a good, I don't think I read, I love to be a literary bitch, but I don't think I read things if I'm not like, okay, who am I going to hope gets together at the end of this? So it's kind of a, that's just who I am. I'm unashamed.
So what, throughout the whole story, and again, without spoilers, what is the most pivotal moment or scene you think that readers should look forward to in this story? I can tell you, I got to be careful here. I got to be real careful here.
Was there a character named Reed that you liked?
There was, yes. And this is, I can't, it's hard to say.
You need cue cards.
Yeah. You know what? It's actually, I'll say it this way. My favorite moment is when Eerie and Rory come together finally at the end of the story. That to me is fucking badass. So
thank you. I wanted them to be fucking badass. I would hope that they get to a certain part and go, just like you said, well damn, or oh shit.
Yes, exactly. That part. Yeah.
I do know that there's a character named Reed that I love, who's he lives at the Boneyard, which is the like kind of the misfit house where all the hushed in town live. And I have thoroughly loved writing him. So everything about him was
Reed's a hoot.
Reed's a hoot. I like him. So that was fun. And I liked just watching people read certain scenes and see how much I could just make them regret reading my books, which was just a delight. But
well,
yeah,
that did not happen, my friend. I have to say, this is more a comment, not really a question. It's really about your writing style. And I have to say, a lot of these scenes are written. The only way I can describe it is written for the screen, right? Like, yeah. It's so visual. I can see it playing out in my head. And it really came through in the first chapter. It comes through a lot of times, especially a lot of times when these hushed meet their end, and it's the rush to get them to stop, and you see every slow motion moment that I could just see it playing out on screen, and it's all in how you write it and how you pace it and all of that stuff. And so,
thank you.
Really well done.
I love Heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
There was some music behind it. That's my shit, man.
Yeah, it was really, really great. So what's next on the horizon for you, Katie? What are you working on that you can share?
That I can share? Well, I do have the second book kind of on the simmer, the simmer part of the stove. And right for the past 6 months, I've been working on a really dark adult fantasy that is just really kind of unhinged and out of pocket, which has been really fun because I've been writing something that's just I have to write with the thought in my brain that no one's ever going to read it, no one's ever going to publish it, and then actually usually turn out writing something I'm very proud of and excited about. Agents are excited about it, so we'll see, but it's just a very dark fantasy with a lot more mature themes and a lot more, just I'm feeling more comfortable at writing darker shit, and I'm going to chase that high and just not tell anybody I love over the age of 50 that it has published, which is just a fantastic game plan. I see no holes in it. So that's been something that it's like I get up at 5 and I'm not a morning person. Anybody who knows me knows that I am like the opposite of a morning person. I feel like my husband calls me a mental health vampire, where it's like when the sun goes down, you're a regular human again. And he's a psychologist, so he can make that joke, and I think it's hilarious. But I get up at 5 now just to write that story, and I know that's where the magic is, where you're like, I'm not writing on a deadline, I'm not writing for an advance, I'm writing just because I want these people to exist, and the only time I can spend with them before my kid wakes up and demands like a scoop of peanut butter or whatever he's in the mood for is if I get up at 5. So I've made myself into an early morning girly to get that happening. But so the sequel, that, and then I do have a short story coming out next year, which is fun. And my comic run for Marvel debuts on December 18th. So there's that.
Oh, right on.
Comics, baby. It's been really fun. And so there's just a lot percolating and coming down the pipeline. And I'm excited. But
that's fantastic. I'm excited too. I'll keep an eye out. So I hope you'll come back when they're out. So
yeah, I mean, I hope you'd have me again, and maybe I can make sure to not have my dog eating my pasta, which I feel like I
was just about to say, no, it's you and Max, or it's nothing. That's the deal.
Fine. I'll make sure he has a less noisy thing to keep him. I'm like, you know what I should do? I should give my dog ceramic and metal. Just don't make noise with that, please. And he's German Shepherd. And he's like, fuck you though. What about that?
A little squeaky toy. He could just sit in the background and do the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I don't have squeak toys anymore in this house. I have 4 kids and 6 pets. I'm like, anybody brings a squeak toy, they're gonna die.
Exactly. Squeaked out. So.
Squeaked out.
The book is called The Hushed. It is available everywhere now. And as we always like to say here at Quills and Chills, please support your local bookstores whenever possible. So, Katie, how can our audience find you on social media?
Yeah, if you want to see me embarrass myself, it's TikTok. So it's Catherine_Blair, and Instagram is Catherine_Blair.
Perfect. I'll include those in show notes. And we'll look for you on social. So thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate having you, and especially having Max. And like I said, feel free to come back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me.
Got it. All right, you guys, we'll see you next time on Quills and Chills. Thanks for joining me on another episode of Quills and Chills. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the mysterious and the haunted. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to support us by subscribing on your preferred podcast platform and leaving us a rating or review, because your feedback helps keep those chills running down both our spines. And feel free to share the show with your favorite fellow horror enthusiasts. Also, if you guys have any spooky stories, strange encounters, or paranormal experiences of your own, I'd love to hear them. Reach out to me on social media or email me at quillsandchillspodcast@gmail.com. Who knows? Your story might end up on a very special episode. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I will see you back here next time on Quills and Chills. Bye, y'all.